So 2025 came in with a, we don't want to say with a bang, but it actually literally did. So there was two attacks, it looks like. One ISIS attack that happened in New Orleans, where a man with a truck drove into a crowd. And also, part of the reports are showing that there was about like five other people trying to plant explosive devices. And then the second one, which is actually kind of interesting, but the Tesla truck that was in front of Trump Tower, um, that detonated. And as you see, that it wasn't just the Cybertruck caught on fire because the batteries or something. It said that within the truck, I'm looking right now at the report saying that the Cybertruck was ripped apart by a huge explosion with metal panels flying. Shattered glass was thrown across the entrance in the hotel and seven others injured. Um, Inside the truck were fireworks, gas tanks, camping fuel connected to a detonation system controlled by the driver. And this is from CNN's reporting this. Um, that's interesting because this is clearly a coordinated attack. And of course, what it was for is because they knew the whole world, 2025, it was a way to show the United States that, hey, you're not safe. And it was a way to also attempt to punish the United States for its stance on the war in Gaza. And kind of, though, the problem that we see here that we're going to have is that now the terrorists that we see, ISIS and different terrorist, different groups, because remember the Sunni and the Shia of the Muslims, they used to kind of not get along too well. But I think what we're seeing now, especially with the war in Gaza, is that they're going to start kind of getting together and putting away their differences for the common enemy, which will be us, Israel, and any Western countries of that nature. As we see, they said that the one in New Orleans was a coordinated one, which I do say it was. I mean, the guy also, they said, was in the army. He was radicalized. But if you remember also that army psychiatrist that shot, like, I believe, killed 20 in Fort Hood, that happened. So the radicalization, just because a person was in the military, doesn't mean that the radicalization can't happen. Um, but what I'm a little concerned about is I don't think anybody's talking about this, but it should be. Like I said on a previous video, as we've seen in Ukraine, um, and even in Israel, to an extent that drones are being used as weapons. If you look at the Ukraine, you can't go more than 2 seconds on TikTok or something like that without seeing a drone fly into a Russian tank and blow it up. So they're, these are just regular drones that they're putting firing mechanisms on, detonation devices and stuff like that onto the actual drone itself and flying it in. So this is where I would be a little scared, is that if we do have these terrorist cells, which you see, they were just waiting for the new year. This didn't just happen out of anywhere. If these drones could be linked to them, if that was just some way for them to see the reaction or trying to create a little bit of fear within the United States, but somehow now they've actually started putting firing mechanisms on this, that could be a big issue in these cities. Because like I said, at night, if you just have a drone going across a busy neighborhood from the air that has a fire mechanism and a gun just shooting into houses, how much fear that would cause. The public would just go insane. Or if you put improvised explosives on these drones and you just go down during a traffic jam on the highway and just detonate cars on there. I mean, if you've ever been to Hampton Roads with the tunnels, create an accident within the tunnel and it'll back the entire interstate up for like 5-6 miles. And then you bring these drones out with explosive devices and people get out with the car. So it could be a big issue. So we definitely need to start understanding this and being more aware of our surroundings, because as we know, the whole issue with us being in the Middle East, and we've since basically after September 11th, we haven't really had a good name in the Middle East. And as I said, the problem that we have, the people there with their religion and their extremism is pretty big, especially here in the United States. As you see, the it's not hard anymore to get radicalized within the United States. Post September 11th, it was a little harder because everybody was pro-United States. But as we've seen, even on these pro-Palestine marches, at some of the college campuses, as we saw that people were cheering on Hamas and cheering on what happened on October 7th. And like I have been a person that has criticized Israel numerous times on their response and how they've been indiscriminately killing people. So it's not that I'm just taking up for Israel, but also you've got to understand that Americans at this point now, it's the radicalization of the population. It's not just a religious thing here in the United States. It's also an idealistic thing where people on different political sides and all that we've created this tension between each other where a lot of our own people are looking at the United States as an enemy, which in some ways, I mean, not that the United States is an enemy, because we do some really shitty things to our own people and to everything like that. But these groups are going in and they're radicalizing our youth and they're radicalizing people who are super into religion, stuff of that nature. I think another issue that we really need to look at and we really need to try to stop is at this point Iran. So Iran has its back against the wall and it's kind of scared. So you got to understand, Iran has really funded Hamas. They funded Hezbollah in Lebanon, and and at this point, like they've if they start uniting terrorist groups, which some of them are separated from like the different parts of Islam, Sunni, Shia, stuff like that, but they, like I said, they will start coming together as a especially if they consider it like an intifada or a holy war against an ungodly country like the United States, they would say. So if they're starting to unite, that could be a major issue because at this point we'll have terrorism and terrorists that are funded by the state. And the state countries such as Iran do have a lot of money and a lot of weapons. A lot of times the issue that terrorists have is their funding and stuff like that it's hard for, especially like sleeper cells. And not to try to politicize this too, but this is something that we really need to be concerned about also with the southern border. So the southern border is not as close as we'd like it to. So that would be a good place to get, especially with like the cartels can get tons of drugs and stuff through the United States. So it's just going to be a matter of time before weapons and explosives and stuff start coming across too. So we do need to start taking a look at that. So, I mean, we 100% need to start looking at our, I'm not a close the border person that people should, because we do need immigrants and we do need immigration, but we need to kind of try to, instead of just halting it, fix it and make it a little more secure, because that now is going to be a national security issue, as we already see. I hope that it doesn't happen, but to think that this is the only act that they have or they're going to be doing anytime soon, it would be foolish of us to think. So hopefully, I know Homeland Security and stuff like that, NSA, FBI, local police, all of them are on high alert trying to, understand this. And we also hope that these drones now weren't a precursor to something that could be bigger, because it does not take a lot to, like I said, put a gun on a drone. It does not take a lot to put an explosive device on a drone, a pipe bomb, something like that. And a person can just sit in a parking lot somewhere and fly over a neighborhood. So this is something that we've really got to start looking into. We've really got to start keeping our heads on a swivel, because September 11th's been a long time, and I know a lot of people have kind of forgot about it, or the feeling there's actually people that are alive now that they weren't even alive during that time. So being attacked on U.S. soil is just something that they've read about in history books. So unfortunately, this is the type of world that we're in. When we meddle and we get into other parts of the region of the world and stuff like that, and through our history, we tend to sometimes not create friends, but create more enemies. And this is one thing that we are creating. A lot of our, people that we might have helped in the past can come and actually end up hurting us right now. I mean, you look at like even the Taliban. I mean, the Taliban is back stronger than ever. They had a come up. Our whole job was to go in there and destroy it. Iraq, Iraq now is just kind of almost a lawless area controlled by Iran. It's, Syria, we helped that destabilize. Syria is now ran by a guy that, was a former ISIS person, or that's what he says is former. So we really need to keep our heads on a swivel. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the last attack. And once these terrorists, once these cells here start becoming a little better, mass casualties is going to be a thing. Because if you remember during the Intifada against Israel, I mean, they were murdering people left and right, and it was just attack after attack after attack. And that I expect that to actually end up happening on our soil at one point. But if we can keep our heads on a swivel, if our people can, the difference is our people also are. We have brave people in the United States, so a lot of people will try to stop these terrorists, and hopefully, if they do, if mass shooting stuff like that, that we will have citizens that can at least report this stuff, stop it, something like that. So, not to try to scare everybody, but hopefully we can come together finally and try to figure out how to at least mitigate this, because I don't see this stopping right now. Because right now, the radical Muslims, they feel that this is a type of holy war that is destined for them, and that this is meant to be, and it's been written. So right now we're really we're seeing an issue between the religious fundamentalist and the Western ideals, which we've always had. But the fact that the stuff that's going on in Israel right now, and to an extent even like the Ukraine, because that's another issue I don't think a lot of people realize, is now that we're funding basically a proxy war with Ukraine against Russia. Russia has no love lost for us now. So Russia has a lot of weapons and a lot of explosive type stuff that they probably wouldn't care too much if some kind of radical got it and brought it to the United States. Don't get me wrong, Russia has its own Islamic radicals within its own area, but since they're now being isolated more from the state, they're going to North Korea, they're going to Iran, they could create a alliance between each other that would allow some of this. Because right now, Iran's only way to really survival, or Iran's only way to stay important, is to continue their proxy wars, not end their proxy wars. So what they're going to look at is if they can try to attack the United States and scare the population, that maybe we'll try to go and talk and negotiate with Iran. But Iran right now is a very dangerous country to us. And it's not so much military-wise, because their military wouldn't stand a chance against our military in a face-to-face battle. But their proxy wars, that they're pretty good at, that they've done for years all across the Middle East and into Israel and stuff like that, that it might have finally came to the United States. And hopefully that's not the case, but to say that it's not would be, I think, kind of foolish, because radicalized extremist Muslims, their whole thing is that they have to be in a holy war, that the whole world has to come against Islam. So that's because that's just what's written for them, and so they welcome the battle. And unfortunately, too, we have, like I said, a lot of idealism. Sorry, we have a lot of people who are idealistic in this country that just want to be part of something or be something special. So now, radicalization of the American population doesn't seem to be as hard as it used to be in the past. So we just need to keep our eyes open to our surroundings, like I said, to people around us, to, not to, we don't need to become where we're turning in our neighbors and stuff. And but we do need to start, keeping our eyes open and just not going through our day blindly thinking that everything's safe. Because as we've seen in the past, September 11th, and even to the extent of Oklahoma City, I know that wasn't Muslim extremism, that was a homegrown terrorist, but we have those too. So the thought that 2025 was, it could end up being one of the more bloody years for the United States, which is sad to say, but we do need to have a mindset like that so that we can try to protect or get ahead of a lot of these things. Another thing that terrorists like doing too that we need to worry about, and I know within our school shootings are horrible, and they tend to be happening more and more all the time within the United States. But you got to remember, another key thing that some of these terrorists have is to attack schools or to attack a school bus. So it would be nothing for them to watch a neighborhood where kids are getting picked up, watch it for a couple of weeks, learn its routine, stuff like that, And then once the kids are getting on, just to bum rush a school bus and kill all the kids. And they know that that's something that would strike to the heart of the United States. This kind of stuff that can't happen when if they declare a holy war on us, and if this and at that point, what do we do? How do we stop that? I mean, is it something that and then the people have to ask themselves, is security worth giving up rights? And then it's a whole it's a whole can of worms that we don't want to open. But we do need to be ready for such things. Like I said, we need to be ready, and we don't need to overreact like we've always done in the past. So this type of battle, if it's coming to the United States shore, we 100% we can help it within ourselves, within our communities, within our groups of people, religious people within their faith, stuff like that. We can stop it if we band together and start looking at security of our own, because we cannot always rely on the federal government to protect us. The federal government has a lot of hands in different cookie jars of good people and bad people. So I wouldn't necessarily just depend on the federal government completely. Another thing, I really hope that it's not the case that this is just a one-time thing. But if history's shown anything, that when the Middle East or different countries get their backs to the wall, especially Iran, you got to remember Iran was the one that took hostages back in the 70s and early 80s from our embassy staff. These were students there, so they understand how to attack and how to get the United States attention, and that's the best way. So, and like I said, we're now creating a whole group of people that really don't like us all around the world. Really, if you look at the failures in Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, it's just it was horrible what we're having to see and deal with at this point. But hopefully, like I said, we can help it within our own communities and banding together as Americans, and understanding that the protection of the United States, protection of our families, protection of everything is paramount, and our petty differences, as everybody says, and they're just not that important. And I would encourage people of Muslim faith to stand up against your radicalization. Don't sit there and whenever this starts happening say, oh, everybody's Islamophobic. No, stand up and be like, look, I understand if some people are scared because we got a bunch of assholes so that do it all the time. I mean, stand up against the terror. That's what you need to do. We can't allow this type of radicalization of our people to continue, because if this happens, then they're going to have a continuous stream of people that are ready to attack us. And that's something we don't want to become, a country where it's just like we get dull and numb to people just their death continuously. Hopefully the new administration, it's surprising. I mean, I understand why they did it on New Year's. It was a way to bring in the new year. It's how they looked at it. But also, like we said in the earlier videos too, this lame duck session that we have right now with the outgoing president, incoming president. I mean, I could see them also doing something on Inauguration Day or whenever President Trump takes over. I could see that's going to be highly watched in the area, because these now smaller attacks are something that these Middle Eastern terrorists are really good at stabbing people on the streets. Like I said, running cars through busy people. So this is something that's real hard to stop once it starts. And unfortunately, we're just going to have to see. And we really hope that this isn't the future, and this isn't how 2025 is going to be. But if it is, just stand by. And like I said, we can protect ourselves, our communities, and just by being vigilant. We've got to stop this political strife and stuff like that. It really doesn't matter anymore. It's never really mattered. It's just we have political parties at both sides, left and right, that use it for power. But hopefully this can be a time for the United States to unite all race, religion, sexualities, genders, whatever the hell. Hopefully we can all be like, you know what, yeah, let's figure this shit out. But like I said, we shouldn't have our heads in the sand and not think about it. These drones are, now I look at it, and now that we see that they are starting to activate terrorist cells in the United States, these drones could be an issue. These drones could be a major issue, and I don't want this to be right. I want this to be, I want to have this That's something I just like made up on the top of my head. But unfortunately, as we've seen, the federal government doesn't seem to have an answer. Local police don't seem to have an answer. But if that happens, we just got to figure that one out too, unfortunately. Um, Thank you guys for watching. I just want to say this one, make this video real quick for the people who are wondering what's going on in the world and, what the future might be bringing to us. But again, like I said, nothing to get overly scared about, but it's definitely something to be vigilant and keep your guard up and, protect your loved ones, protect yourselves. Just keep an eye out because that's what it's going to take is the American people. And let's just forget about these petty shits that we have that we don't like about each other and just try to figure out that, hey, the war could always come to us, just like it has everybody else. Again, guys, thank you, and I appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys later.